but relationships and character will almost always get you a second look.
Mm,
I mean, the people you know and the relationships you develop and how you treat folks and how you go about your daily interactions and your tasks. I mean, that stuff, it just simply goes, I can't talk about it enough.
mm,
Um, it's a huge reason why I landed both of the, opportunities that I landed in terms
mm.
of with the Bucks. That went back to a relationship that of a coach that kind of followed me throughout my career, and we developed a rapport. And I ended up reaching out to him, and he put me in touch with the Bucks and Boston, and I interviewed with those two organizations, and then obviously here, like my coach Holtman recruited me when I was 15, 16, 17 years old, getting ready to try to pick a college, and the way you treat people and how you handle certain situations and how you interact, that all like somebody's always watching, and that always will come back in some form or fashion.
Hello, everyone. This is Author Tim Brown, the book Uncommon Athletes, Filled with Purpose, Fueled by Passion. I'm excited today to have with on the show. He's wearing that scarlet and gray. He made it full circle back to Columbus, Ohio, and it's a familiar name to all of us. The Kellogg name is well known. This is Nick Kellogg. So, Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you having me on here. Good to see you again. Look
Yeah.
forward to chopping it up with you.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a good one. I know, being the son of a high school a star, college star, your dad Clark played in the NBA, have an older brother who played basketball, and most may not know your sister Talisa. She was a great athlete, played volleyball at Georgia Tech. Uh, you being the baby boy, what kind of pressure was it you to play basketball, to be a baller?
Honestly, not a ton. I just kind of came natural. It was something that I had an interest in, and expressed it to my parents. I wanted to play at some point, and as I got older, I just continued to grow a love for the game and continue to work on it. And again, it was just something I enjoyed. There wasn't a ton of pressure from my parents or my siblings, really. It's just
So
something that I naturally kind of got into.
yeah, when you decided to play, dad have a few pointers for you.
Yeah, for sure. Um, he did, but growing up, he was pretty hands off. To be honest, he was more interested in kind of letting us figure things out and kind of develop our own path and making our own mistakes and
Yeah.
kind of learning that way. He definitely, anytime we asked or wanted to chop it up with him about certain things, he for sure had tips and pointers about the game. But he was pretty relaxed in his manner with dealing with us in sports.
Mm, good, good. Yeah, I know. Growing up, you had great success as a youth and high school soccer player. Things on great travel teams. I mean, you went overseas and played in the tournament
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well. Well, when did you decide to fully commit to basketball, and why?
So I didn't fully commit to basketball until my junior year of
Mm,
high school, when I kind of just strictly, I put the cleats up, I stopped playing high school soccer. And yeah, to be honest, I look back on that decision and I think there's times where I feel like I picked the wrong sport, but um, basketball, it was just something that, again, it came natural. I loved it. I enjoyed it. It was just kind of, in my blood, so to speak, and part of our background. Like we were such a heavily driven basketball family. So it was always around us. And, we're always watching it and talking hoops. And, we loved watching college, loved watching the pros. So, um, and I figured that it was the sport that I could excel at the most at the next level. So that's kind of what was the deciding factor for me. And yeah, and then I ended up again stopping my junior year of soccer and then just kind of focusing on basketball.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels between soccer and basketball. The two sports. How did your soccer experience help you maybe become a better basketball player?
I think the biggest thing um, I think it was like from a conditioning standpoint,
Mm,
um, and just endurance. Like soccer is, and those have played, they'll tell you a lot of running, especially especially depending on what position you're playing. So
Right,
I was a midfielder.
okay.
So I did, I was offense, defense. So I had to be in really good shape, and that was kind of one of the things that translated to my basketball game. Always being, when it was obviously soccer's a fall sport, so when it was time to roll into to basketball season, I was always in really good shape,
Mm-hmm.
and that was big to be able to play, heavy minutes and play the point guard position, which I played in high school. That was a major thing to be ready and to be physically fit. So that was a big part of the benefit of playing soccer.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, guys talk about that footwork, how soccer really helps with your footwork as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because
For sure,
basically it's about your feet.
for sure.
That
Yeah,
goes hand in hand.
just it just in terms of um, being agile, being quick,
Mm-hmm.
having that footwork and having those kind of that coordination to translate as well. Angles and things
Right.
that matter in both sports. So that was definitely a big part of it as well.
Yeah. You had great success at every level. Your high school basketball teammates is state Final Four. Of course, the Bobcats teammate at NCAA Tournament Sweet 16 run. As being part of those teams, what would you say are some of the qualities of a successful team?
I think the biggest thing is just chemistry and buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
From the players. Because it starts with obviously you need good coaches and you need good leadership, but the buy-in and the chemistry that the players are able to um, kind of have and form as a season goes along is extremely important because ultimately those are the guys out on the court that have to execute and get things done. And the more chemistry and the more togetherness and kind of camaraderie that you can have, it's just going to bode well in the end. I think back to some of those teams, and they were extremely obviously they were talented and again we had great leadership, but some of those teams were extremely close off the court.
Mm-hmm.
And when that chemistry can be both on and off, good things tend to happen when you're close with guys like that. So.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Can you speak to some maybe the young athletes that's on this that's listening? How do teams develop that chemistry? What are some ways you think that chemistry is developed?
um, First and foremost, I think it's just an understanding of kind of who you guys are and what you've kind of signed up to do, and realizing that the group that you're with is going to be the group that you're with in the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
You come in the summer. Speaking of college here, you come in the summer together, and you're with your class, and you meet the team, and you're doing 6 a.m. workouts together. You're lifting weights, you're practicing, your skill workouts, all that stuff. As you continue to do that and get to know one another, that in and of itself builds chemistry and kind of builds that togetherness and that closeness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, it just I think time is the biggest thing, and
Mm-hmm.
being intentional about getting to know those guys,
Mm-hmm.
um, because you do spend so much time with them,
Right.
and the more you guys can kind of create a bond and form relationships. Again, even off the court, I think that serves you well on the court on the court too. So
Yeah, something, all these guys come in, they're all high school stars, they're all probably the best player on their team. And now you have to come in and mix with all these other guys, so there's some things you have to give up.
yeah.
And I know you developed, you say you're a point guard in high school. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure at OU you became a great shooting guard.
Yep.
How was that transition for you?
Um, it was kind of a big one because I think if you ask around, at least in my high school days, I wasn't that great of a shooter. um, so once I got to OU and kind of saw the makeup of the roster and kind
Mm,
of got a feel for where I could add value and where I could be impactful. Um, Shooting was one of those areas that our team kind of lacked,
mm,
and that was something that I just kind of had to put the work in to do, and again to figure out a way to play.
yes, yes.
And once I realized that I wasn't going to be playing as much point guard, it was Yeah, it was a process. It was
Mm-hmm.
definitely a process, and it was something I wasn't used to. I'm used to handling the ball and kind of calling the shots, calling the plays, running the show a little bit. So it was definitely um, a transformation and a process. But again, like you said, you have to give some things up
Mm-hmm.
if you want to be successful, and if you want to be on a good team.
Right.
Like the team at OU, like didn't need a point guard, so it wasn't. It was nothing against me. It was just the makeup of the roster, and I had to figure out,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I can still add value. I can still be, a good player and contribute to the team. But what's that going to look like?
Yeah.
Is kind of what the process was. And once I figured out, shooting was something that I could work on and continue to improve. That's kind of what I honed in on.
Yeah. I think it worked out pretty well for you, that shooting.
It did. It did.
It
It
worked out
did.
quite well, quite well. Yes, amazing game shooting that ball.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So after college, you continue, playing overseas, trying NBA, that process. Can you talk about those experiences, what you learned along the way?
Man, yeah, there was a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I graduated in 14 and ended up um, doing a couple mini camps with a couple NBA teams, the Pacers and the Cavs. Um, and that in and of itself was just a great learning experience for me to see,
Mm-hmm.
guys at that level, workouts at that level, coaching at that level, which was awesome. I mean, that's every player's dream to you know play professionally at some level, and obviously the NBA being the ultimate goal. So that was a blessing to see that and to be able to participate in those workouts and be around those guys and that caliber of basketball. Um, and obviously, ultimately, you know, creating a career for myself overseas ended up being the path, which was just as good, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the experience I got, um, working on my game, improving along the way, um, seeing different parts of the world. I mean, there's just so many things that I was thankful for to be able to continue to play and also have those experiences to kind of take with me. So um, it was awesome. Those 6 years I played were really fun, and I learned a lot just about basketball, about myself, and again about other parts of the world.
Yeah. When did you realize that, hey, it's just time to go a different direction, so to speak?
Well, funny because I really didn't. um, there was a lot. There was a couple factors. COVID had kind of a lot
Yeah.
to do with
Right.
my changing gears. Um, I was overseas when actually playing in Finland when
Mm-hmm.
COVID kind of hit. I still believe I think we had 7 or 8 games left plus playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
and we ended up shutting everything down. I came home in March. Actually, it was March 15th. I remember it. March 15th, 2020. It was my sister's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then that changed the whole landscape of kind of everything
Wow.
in terms of, when leagues would even start back up. And then on top of that, when, foreigners,
Mm-hmm.
aka Americans, would be able to, go back over and start playing, there was all the talk of, vaccines and this and that and travel and not being allowed in or not being allowed out. Like there's so many variables that kind of went into that. And I started thinking, hey, like this thing doesn't, this doesn't turn around, and I can't just I can't just
Right,
wait
right, right,
to
right,
wait
right,
until it does. So I kind of
right.
at that point, probably midsummer, I was still working out and training, and
Mm-hmm.
but also kind of thinking of what would be next,
Mm-hmm.
um, in terms of my future and ultimately my career. So I kind of just started reaching out to contacts that I had in the coaching world and the basketball world that I had built, along my playing career and some of the relationships I had made, and ultimately landed in a video role with the Milwaukee Bucks. So,
Mm. Yes.
uh, so yeah, it kind of. I was thinking about it. I hated that it ended that way and was kind of out of my control.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but once I, accepted that position, I still held out hope, but I kind of knew that it was I was going to be kind of changing gears
Mm,
for the future.
right. And I know that grew up in church and all that. How about your involvement with? I know you're involved in Athletes in Action at
Mm-hmm.
Ohio University, and then at the
Mm-hmm.
level. Coach Mo's a good friend of both of ours. How
Mm-hmm.
did that help you continue to grow in your faith? You're away from home and all the friends. How did that involvement with FCA help you grow in your faith?
It was just honestly, it was the foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and the relationships that I had through those organizations. AIA, FCA, the people I met along the way, and like you said, Coach Mo was kind of my guy with Athletes in Action that I still to this day stay in touch with and talk to him, and then when I was down at OU, a guy named Mark Stickle who was in Athletes in Action. Those were kind of my rocks in terms of making sure that my faith stayed where it needed to and continued to grow, quite honestly. So it goes back to relationship building,
Mm-hmm.
and those relationships I developed a long time ago,
Right.
and like I said, continue to talk to those guys to this day, and just
Mm-hmm.
about whatever, about life, about obviously things pertaining to faith, and continuing to grow there, and um, but just having them kind of as mentors and friends was instrumental in me, being away from home
Mm-hmm.
um, for so long and for so many years. Like, yeah, they were a big help in terms of keeping kind of my mental and my spiritual
Yeah. Yeah.
where it needed to be.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, those guys do a great job, Coach Mo, and just like I say, you
Yeah,
need those people to lean on, those you can count on,
for sure, for sure.
and not even just checking on you, just seeing how you're
Hmm.
doing,
Yeah,
just and
yeah,
not. And I love those guys because they're not, we're in ministry, we're not really asking for anything, we're here to serve, we're here to help,
right.
or to come alongside, and
You know,
it's just. Uh, Boy, you had an unbelievable experience. So you kind of teased us with that Milwaukee Bucks experience, but you had an unbelievable experience with those guys being a part of the that NBA championship run with the Bucks. Can you talk about first off about your role with the team? What was your role with the team?
my official title was video coordinator and player development assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And so in layman's terms, I was basically a like essentially a hired manager. I'll put it that way. A hired manager in terms of just kind of a jack of all trades, being around, being available,
Right.
being able to help the staff, help the coaching staff, help the players,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of whatever they needed. And then obviously along with that, a lot of film work,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of film work and study. Again, just to assist and serve the coaches and
Mm-hmm.
in whatever areas they need help in or need some extra hands. So it was kind of a catch all
Mm-hmm.
in terms of my daily duties and daily responsibilities. But yeah, like you said, it was a heck of a run, a really um, great and full 2 years
Mm-hmm.
of just experience and learning and developing relationships. And man, like yeah, I could talk about that job forever.
What was
But no,
one of your most memorable experiences during that time? What's
I
something
mean,
that just kind of jumps out at you?
just the whole championship run.
Yeah.
Um, it's too hard to pinpoint one thing.
Yeah.
That whole run
Mm-hmm.
um, was just incredible. Just to be a part of it, just to see it up close and see how those guys, the focus and the determination and the sacrifice and the willingness that those guys had to put everything on the line. And
Yeah.
I mean, if you remember the Brooklyn series down, I mean Phoenix series down, like just that whole run was phenomenal.
Mm.
And to see that up close of the best players in the world, um, it was special. It
Yeah.
was special.
Yeah. As you're going through that experience, being around an MVP player like Giannis and those other guys, what was it about them that made them so special? What were those qualities that they had that just make them so special?
I think it sounds a little cliche, but in all honesty, it's the work.
Mm-hmm.
Like seeing those guys, and especially I got to be with them for 2 seasons, especially during the championship run. The work and the focus that they have at the ultimate level is just it's uncanny, really. And I think that's something that a lot of folks don't realize. Even avid sports fans who understand how good these guys are and the different levels of player and teams that there are. It's just unless you're in it, it's really hard to kind of grasp what those guys do on a daily basis and what they and how they train to get prepared for what they get prepared for. Playing 82 games plus playoffs. I mean that's a lot of basketball. And to play it at the level that you obviously mentioned Giannis and Drew and Chris and Bobby and like I mean the whole list of guys, Pat. I mean just it's really really neat and unique to see just the details that go into that. You don't just roll it out and win a championship. I mean those guys are in there, taking care of their bodies, eating properly, watching film, stretching, yoga. I mean, you can just go down the list, like, and then not to mention obviously the work that goes in on the court,
right?
To perfect their craft and to get to do something like they did it was remarkable. And again, it was just a blessing and a privilege to be a part of that for 2 years.
Yeah, it's nice holding that trophy. Huh? I saw the pictures, man.
Yeah, it was
nice. It's special. Yeah, that's special.
definitely.
Yeah, I think when people don't realize what you hit on, the fact that these guys have prepared themselves. I mean, it's an 82-game regular season.
82-game regular season, right?
So the playoffs in there, you're going to spend 100 games.
And yeah,
it's a long season because it starts in October and the finals is not until June.
Sure.
And
you, very long
have
season.
to stay mentally sharp, physically sharp through that. And it's amazing what those guys are able to do, to keep
it
that
really
focus,
is.
keep that drive.
Oh man, it really is. And you can just, being that close to it, obviously there's ups and downs, there's bumps and bruises, but for the most part, and it's the reason they're pros. They can, they can stay right here. They don't get too high, they don't get too low, don't let too much fuss to them, and they just keep that same approach, same mentality. And yeah, it was special. That was a really cool and good group of guys.
Yeah. As we have some young guys on here listening, can you talk to these young guys about how important two things? One, the importance of relationships, that you never know who may be in a position down the road, and then how important character is. Could you speak to these guys about those two things?
Man, well, quite honestly, and I don't want to overstate this. Those might be the only two things that actually matter in terms of you have to bring a skill set. Like I'll acknowledge that for sure. You have to be adept at what you're doing and kind of and bring value to whatever field or whatever job or career that you're trying to get into. But relationships and character will almost always get you a second look. I mean, the people and the relationships you develop and how you treat folks and how you go about your daily interactions and your tasks. I mean, that stuff, it just simply goes, I can't talk about it enough. It's a huge reason why I landed both of the, opportunities that I landed in terms of with the Bucks. That went back to a relationship of a coach that kind of followed me throughout my career, and we developed a rapport. And I ended up reaching out to him, and he put me in touch with the Bucks in Boston, and I interviewed with those two organizations, and then obviously here, like my coach Holtman recruited me when I was 15, 16, 17 years old, getting ready to try to pick a college, and the way you treat people and how you handle certain situations and how you interact, that all, like, somebody's always watching, and that always will come back in some form or fashion. And I mean, that was Coach Holtman recruited me when I was 16, 17. I'm 30 now, so that's more than a decade ago. And because of the relationship that we built and the feelings that we developed, and him feeling like I was somebody he could trust, and vice versa, and the guy with, good character and all those things. Like that is ultimately why, he reached out and, I felt comfortable enough to, come here and lead the Bucks and all that stuff. Like it works. It's always working in some form or fashion, your character and the people you network and connect with.
Yeah.
Like it's so important. Like it's
Yeah.
so important. I can't stress that enough.
Yes. It's two things that we tell young guys all the time is that talent will get you so far. So you gotta have a skill set, don't get me wrong, but character is what keeps you there. I
It,
saw
it
I saw you
100%.
I saw Ulannis Hassan. He was signed up for a 20th year. With
Yeah.
he may not play a minute all season,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's because of his
Yeah.
character,
His character, his
being that locker room guy and relationship,
locker room. Yep.
all that kind
Yep.
of
Yep.
it's important. And the other thing is, we may know a lot of people. We all know a lot of people, but the big thing is what they know about you.
Right.
You don't want to be that guy. Well, Nick Kellogg, he's a good guy, but
Right.
you don't want to be that guy.
No, you don't. You
Young
don't.
people,
You definitely don't.
you don't want to be that guy. So your role, I see you back. Things come full circle. You're back with Coach Holman. But what do you personally feel that you have to offer these young guys? The impact that you want to have on this program at Ohio State? Because we're at a certain level. What impact do you want to have on these young guys coming in through your experiences?
Yeah, a lot of it is again, it goes back to what you said. It's just about relationships and building those with these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Having them, being somebody that they can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
I was a college player.
Yes.
I played professional. I played professionally.
Mm-hmm.
I've been around an NBA organization. I've seen winning at the highest level. So just kind of bringing those things to them and helping them understand um, what it really takes
Mm-hmm.
to be successful as a group and individually. Like
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of those things as well. In terms of the time, the dedication, the
Mm-hmm.
work, the sacrifice. So I've seen all those things in a um, numerous arenas, so to speak. And yeah, I want to be somebody that they can kind of come to and lean on for some information, guidance, um, kind of whatever they need. I think it's always important for um, players to kind of have that person and that they see as kind of an equal. It's one thing to have your coaches
Right.
and support staff and all that, but it's also good to know that somebody has been in your exact shoes. I was a player. I
Mm-hmm.
played professionally. I've seen guys at the highest level. Maybe a level that they aspire to get to. So, to have that experience and to be able to share some of those things with them and give them some insight and some tips here and there. That's kind of what I look to do for these guys,
Yeah.
and be a sounding board.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever they're going through, just try to help them through it and help them be the best they can be for themselves and obviously for the team and the program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's a great opportunity for you because you're a guy who hasn't been there 30 years ago, but who's been there recently. Yeah,
Exactly.
who can still beat them in video games. Some of the other coaches there.
I don't know about that.
You
I
gave the
don't know
sticks
about
up.
that. Yeah,
Them
hey,
college video
wow.
game days, bro.
Yeah, I know. I know we got a couple gamers on the team too.
Right?
So
Oh, no, you definitely got there.
yeah,
You got this. Has
yeah.
been wonderful. As we wrap up, Nick, I just want to, if you can just share one last thing. Take me back to what advice would you give a 14, 15-year-old Nick Kellogg? What advice would you give a 14, 15-year-old?
Just stay the course.
Mm-hmm.
Stay the course. Like I mentioned it when I was talking about kind of the Bucks and those guys. Just don't get too high. Don't get too low. Um, you know, Lock in on something and develop a plan to, make it happen and understand that there's going to be bumps, there's going to be twists, there's going to be turns, there's going to be some unforeseen things come up,
Mm-hmm.
but just stay the course. Just keep knocking at that door, um, and if you put that time in, you put the effort in, you're going to reap some type of benefit. It might not be the exact, thing you were looking for, but it could be something that's going to lead you to something that's better, or a relationship that's better, or something that you didn't even have on your radar. So just stay the course. Don't give up and just keep pushing because you never know what's around that corner, and somebody's always watching.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
good.
always keep that in mind that somebody's watching and listening and taking note of how you're interacting and how you're going about things. So that's what I would tell
Yeah, that's a great word. That's a great word. As we think about the Bible, and Proverbs said, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart,
them. All
lean not to your own understanding. All your
understanding.
ways acknowledge Him, and He'll direct your path." Because we have a way that we want to go.
Right,
We just
right.
got to trust God in that, and we look back over it. We couldn't have wrote this script even better.
We couldn't have. So I'll tell you. I'll end you with this. So funny story, kind of just to piggyback on that.
Mm-hmm.
So initially, I interviewed with Boston and Milwaukee,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually had Stevie was in Boston at the time. So I'm
Right.
thinking I want to go to Boston. I want to go to Boston.
Yeah.
And I didn't know a ton about Milwaukee or the team or the organization, But I'm so set on Boston, Boston, Boston. Um, and it didn't work out. They ended up going a different direction with who they hired in their video room, and so I got the Milwaukee job. I was still super pumped and grateful, but I was just like, man, I really wanted to go to Boston. Turns out I get to Milwaukee and we win a world championship.
Oh man.
So it just goes to show,
Yeah.
sometimes our own ideas and our own ambitions aren't always in line with kind of where we're supposed to be and where God wants us.
Where
So
God wants us
that's
to
just
be.
that's just kind of a funny story.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So I know you want to be there with Stevie, watching him at Boston.
yeah,
He
all right,
on the sideline at the games.
all
He
right,
is.
all right,
Yeah,
all
it's too
right.
funny. But
So
God has a plan. His plan's better than ours. So I want to thank you, Nick, for your time. And I want to leave you with this. I'm just so proud of you being the young man that you are and creating a name for yourself. Creating your own path, your own lane. And I
yeah,
know
for
there's
sure.
greater things for you. I'm excited about just following you and seeing what God has for you throughout your career. All right, my
For sure,
friend. Well, I
appreciate it.
appreciate you. All right, now go Bucks.
Likewise,
All
I
right.
appreciate it. Yeah, yeah. Bye bye.